during this week we would like to discuss a very important topic called material requirements planning or MRP. Now this particular the system of production and inventory control is made available in different forms, and as it is a computerized system, obviously this MRP system or material requirements planning system has evolved through several types of or several versions. So during this week we would like to discuss material requirements planning in different forms. So the first one is it's in original form. It was introduced in mid 70s and this is referred to as the MRP, and subsequently we later on a new version of MRP or extended version of MRP was introduced, that is referred to as the MRP2 or manufacturing resource planning. And then later on, even for the distribution network, the concept of MRP can be applied. So we move to distribution requirement planning. So during this week, all these the three aspects we are going to discuss, and as the topic is management of inventory systems, you will come to know, or it is already known, we have mentioned this very important point that that inventory control system is very much linked to the production control system. And when you talk about say the material requirements planning or manufacturing resource planning or the distribution requirement planning, so mainly we concentrate on two aspects. One is the inventory control and the second one is the production control. So so while we establish, why we implement such a system, obviously the system concept is applicable, and what we propose, that is an integrated system for inventory and the production control. And all these three kinds of systems have been well adopted by several organizations around say the different countries of the world. Now there will be 5 lecture sessions. So let me first tell you what are the topics we will be covering. We intend to cover the lecture wise. During lecture 1 we will introduce the concept of material requirements planning, and under what condition you are supposed to use this particular system vis-a-vis the traditional system. Specifically, we will mention the objectives of MRP, and while you create an MRP system, that means you should be aware of what kinds of inputs you must have in this particular system. So we will start discussing on MRP inputs. You must have a very clear idea about the MRP inputs. During lecture 2, second session, we will continue our discussion on MRP inputs. Okay, a detailed discussion is required, and then we will also refer to the MRP outputs. So for the system, the inputs and the outputs both are known, and then during the third lecture session we will discuss MRP outputs. There are many other aspects, so different aspects of or the characteristic features of these outputs we will refer to, and then we will take up a few numerical examples. During the fourth lecture session, we will refer to another numerical example so that your understanding is appropriate, and then we will talk about how this MRP system has evolved through the years, and particularly we'll refer to MRP2 or manufacturing resource planning. What are the characteristic features of MR2 system? During the last session, we'll talk about the evolution of MRP systems. That means we'll continue our discussions on MRP2, the limitations of MRP systems specifically we should mention, and we'll mention it, and then we'll briefly discuss the characteristic features of the DRP, distribution requirement planning, with its working as well as with its limitation. Okay, so this will be your broad coverage, and now let us talk about the characteristic features of MRP system, objectives of MRP and MRP inputs. Okay. Now we have already discussed till the 6th week of our the lecture sessions. We have referred to different kinds of inventory problems, and we have classified the inventory problems, and we need to consider several the factors in defining a particular inventory problem, and we have proposed the formulation of the problem, and we also refer to the solution approaches. Now, if you refer to all these formulations as well as the solution approaches, you will find that only for one kind of the item, or one kind of say the products, or one kind of the components, okay, or inventory item, we have formulated the problem. And what is this type of say the inventory item? Now, this type is referred to as independent demand type. So you know what is an independent the demand type, say the item, or independent demand items. So whatever say the mathematical models we have referred to, we have discussed, we have taken up, these are all the applicable for independent demand items. And of course in a manufacturing systems or in any organizations producing different kinds of outputs, or the goods and services, or the products and services, you are able to identify what are the independent the inventory items, okay, mostly the end product or the end goods and services. Now in order to produce the end product as per the bill of material or as per the product structure code, what you need to do, you need the raw materials, and you need to consider the WIP inventory. So obviously, if you look at a particular manufacturing systems, what you find that these raw materials and this the WIP inventories, these are all used or these are all required, the necessary for producing the end items. So these the inventories are referred to as the dependent inventories. So now, so the dependent the demand items, you are already aware of the dependent the demand items. Now for dependent say the demand items, it is very difficult, if not impossible, to propose a mathematical model. So and even if you propose a mathematical model, you will find that these any mathematical models will be constrained by so many assumptions, and this model may not represent a real system. And even if you model it, you may not get the closed form solutions for the relevant parameters of inventory control systems. And as I have already pointed out, that inventory control system is closely linked with the production control systems. Now the modeling the linking mathematically, it's very difficult, if not say impossible. This is point number one. The second point is, in order to produce the end items, particularly for the repetitive manufacturing, you need to deal with the large number of say the intermediate items or the dependent demand items. So in these dependent demand items are needed at different levels of the product structure or the bill of material. Now they are all the dependent with one another. That means you have one item. Now this item demand is dependent on the demand of its parent items, and similarly the demand of the parent item is dependent on the demand of the parent item and the next higher level. So this process continues. And when you look at the bill of material for the end product, depending on how many say the items you have, what kinds of the raw materials you require, how many sub assemblies you have, there could be n number of the levels, and this is called basically the product structure hierarchy. And as you have more number of items to be considered for designing and manufacturing end item or end product, so there is all likelihood that you will have large number of such levels. So the dependency between the different levels you need to consider, and it is very difficult to mathematically formulate the problem. So what is the alternative? Alternative is that why don't you propose an online real-time say the control systems, inventory control systems, and while you propose an online real-time inventory control systems for say the dependent the demand items, obviously these online systems or the real-time systems will have a close link with the production control systems. So that is the alternative. Many companies over the last 50 years or so across the world, so they have been adopting so this online the real-time system. So MRP is basically an online real-time say control systems, inventory and production control system. Now let us go through these comments. Like in the classification of the inventory problems, it is stated that the demand for an item may be classified as either independent or dependent. This point already I have made clear. The material requirements planning, I repeat, it is material requirements planning or MRP system is recommended for inventory control and management of dependent demand items. Is it okay? In dependent demand item, there exists a direct relationship between it and the demand for another higher level or parent item, as per the structure of the bill of material, which is many a time referred to as the product structure code. Demand for dependent items is the result of the requirements generated for their use in the manufacturing of another item. So with there are many examples of the dependent the demand items. So definitely we'll refer to a few examples, and then the concept you will have a proper understanding of the concept. Now one unit of a product or the assembly, that means the end product in a repetitive manufacturing case may be thought of as an assembly. So one unit of a product, sometimes this is referred to as the output, is manufactured with parts and sub-assemblies in different quantities or numbers. as specified in bill of material as per its product structure hierarchy. That means what is the bill of material? That means this is the document actually prepared by the design department. And if you look at this document, what do you find? You find this information. That means to produce 1 unit of output or say the end product, how many different types of raw materials in different quantities or the sub assemblies or the other types of parts you require to produce, you require to assemble. So all this information you get from the bill of material. So this is the output or the outcome of the design department. Now this is one of the document document you always refer to while you create an MRP system. Now the demand for each part or the sub assembly is dependent on the demand of the end product. For example, a bicycle consists of 2 wheels. This is a very simple example, and you will come to know actually what we are proposing or what we are trying to say explain. Whereas demand of a bicycle is independent, because this demand is dependent on the outside factors like the marketing related factors. The demand of the wheel is dependent on the demand of the bicycle. A simple example is, if 100 units is the demand of the bicycle in a given period, the demand of the wheel is 2 into 100, that is 200 units for the same time period. Okay, so this way you calculate. So this is just an example. So at different levels you have the different units. When we refer to the numerical examples, this point will be made very, very clear. Now what we are saying, that for a given product its demand can be forecasted. That means the end product, normally what you have in a good or say progressive manufacturing the company, or for that matter the other companies also of other types, you will find that the forecasting of the demand is an important issue. Though there may be some error, maybe 5 to 10% error or say 1 to 5% error, but your starting point should be the forecasted say the demand levels for the given end product, and this the demand is used to determine the stock level replenishment. So if you refer to the different kinds of formulations or the inventory problems, and you will find that one of the parameter to be determined, the value of one of the parameters is order quantity. So it's a Q systems of inventory control. So one of the important factor determining the order quantity is obviously the demand level. So the demand of sub assemblies and the parts for the product at different levels of the product structure hierarchy, as you find in its bill of material, product bill of material, are dependent on demand of higher level items. In a typical production system, demand for work in process or WIP and raw materials is dependent on the production of independent demand items. This point already we have elaborated. That means how much the raw materials you require, depending on say the requirements as specified in the bill of materials. Okay, that means to produce 1 unit of output, how much raw materials of a specific type you require. So that information is given to you, and then when you know the demand level of say the end product, so you just calculate as per the demand level of the end product what is the total requirement of a specified or a specific so the raw materials to be used. So this rule is followed. Now the MRP systems are designed to help the production system cope better with the dependent demand items. Okay, so this is just a further elaboration. So the main purpose of say material requirements planning is to plan the requirements for dependent demand items, as the number of such items is very high. This point already I have mentioned. MRP must be a computer based system. That means even in the 70s you will find that there had been several say the applications of MRP systems, and the companies which used to have say the computers those days, they felt like the implementing MRP systems. That means the number of dependent the demand items is always very less, but the number of say independent demand items is always number of dependent demand items is always very high, and so the computer based system is a must. An online real time control of flow of raw materials and the WIP inventories is desired through design and implementation of an MRP system. Now, what are the specific objectives of MRP? And those are referred to as the primary objectives of MRP. You must have a very clear idea about these objectives, and if you know its objectives, that means you will also be able to assess in a given situation where at a particular point in time whether the MRP system is implementable or not, or it is, or is it the the basic need at this point in time. So the release, so what are the objectives? The first objective is to release production and purchase orders. Okay, so later on when we discuss the purchasing management systems, so you will come to know that that the purchase order, or the purchase order is a document which actually the triggers the many types of actions as required for procurement of the ordered the items. So what you need to do, that means at a periodic interval or at infrequent so the time intervals, you need to release the production and purchase orders to control the flow of raw materials and WIP inventories. Now, as we have been emphasizing all the time that ultimate objective of any inventory and production the control system is to get a smooth flow of materials within the manufacturing systems, and you can extend this smooth flow of materials so the beyond manufacturing systems, like say the distribution system also. So many a time the manufacturing systems or the factory systems and the distribution systems you may consider as one system, and so that's why ultimately so the MRP system must be extended to the distribution requirement planning systems. So our concern is controlling the flow of raw materials and WIP inventories necessary to meet the production schedules for finished products or the end items, to ensure availability of materials, components and products for planned production and customer delivery at the right time, and to maintain minimum levels of dependent demand items. So this is very important as far as inventory investment is concerned. Now MRP is capable of developing realistic plans for meeting delivery due date. Later on when we take up numerical examples, so you will elaborate this concept. That means here the one objective is that how to meet the delivery due date. Okay, there may be other say the objectives in a typical say the operation scheduling problems, but as far as MRP is concerned, That means just one objective you have to meet, that is the delivery due date. Say this you have to meet this delivery due date condition as per the schedules of independent demand items. Okay. So MRP ensures proper timing of order placement and hence is known also as time phased requirements planning. That means as the planning horizon you need to determine, say few weeks or say 10 weeks or 15 weeks. Now week wise you need to specify your requirements, and week wise also you need to specify your order quantities, your the manufactured quantities, and constantly you have to monitor the situation or monitor values. Okay, so that's why it is referred to as the online real-time systems. Now there are three major inputs. Now we are referring to MRP system inputs. So this is your starting point. Suppose you want to create an MRP system. So the first thing you look into, that is the inputs. So what is the input? Essentially it is an input output based systems. Okay. So there are three major inputs of an MRP systems. The first one is the master production schedule or the MPS. So this is the primary document, this is the starting point. That means the master production schedule you must be able to create, and usually your basic inputs is aggregate production plan. So once the aggregate production plan is made, then you will be able to prepare this particular document, that is referred to as the master production schedule, MPS. Then the next one, the next important the input document you refer to, that is referred to as the inventory status records. That means as of now what is the status of inventory of a given item. And then the third one is the product structure records, or this is basically the bill of material for the end items. Now a master production schedule is a document that outlines the production plan for all end items. Okay, that means the end product or the assembly. From this document we come to know how much of each item is planned and when it is required. That means quantity and timing. Okay, so the information pertaining to the quantity and the timing is made available from this document. The end item output is developed from end item forecast and customer orders. This point already I mentioned. Now MPS or master production schedule is the main input to and the driving force behind an MRP system. The end items can be of different categories depending on the product positioning strategies adopted. So what are the product positioning strategies? I have already mentioned in my initial lecture sessions, like say to what extent the inventory management system is related to the product positioning strategies. So please refer to those lecture sessions. So the first one is the make to order. That means you first get the order from your customer and then you start manufacturing it. End item is customer ordered unit. Okay, so it should be it may be a very specific design. Next situation could be make to stock. That means already say the design is known and you just produce it to stock, and you know that either today or tomorrow this will be the sold. That means there is a constant demand. Demand may be the fluctuating, the level of demand may be fluctuating, but there is a demand. That means end item is the final assembly unit. Assemble to order. That means you are not manufacturing it, you are getting the items from other sources, and you get the order, you wait for the order, and then as per the order requirements you go for the assembling. End item is intermediate assemblies or sub assemblies and fabricated parts. So with this, what we conclude that there will be why you go for MRP systems. So this point is made very clear. Then what are the primary objectives of MRP systems, and in order to create such a systems, you need different kinds of inputs, and the three important inputs you must have. The first one is the MPS, or master production schedule, that you derive from segregate production plan. The second one is the inventory status records, or the files. Okay, so you must refer to those. That means you must create those files called inventory status files. And the third one is, that is the product structure code, or the product structure records, or in general this is referred to as say the bill of material. So now in the subsequent sessions we will be elaborating on the MRP inputs, MRP outputs and all those. So with this I conclude this session. Thank you.